What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to BT Unleashed. What in the world was that from the New York Knicks last night? Are you kidding me? Yeah, we got to start about the Knicks here. We got to start talking about the Knicks. There are a lot of troubling signs here for our beloved New York Knicks. First of all, here's the problem, right? So the Knicks are an offensive team. That was the identity. Mike Brown coming in, and I like the hire. I always knew that Mike wasn't their first choice. I never thought that Mike Brown was going to be, some reincarnation of Red Holtzman and Pat Riley. I never thought that. But I'll tell you what, I also didn't expect the struggles that have suddenly crept in. And it's one thing to struggle, but it's also another, like these signs that you lose, and then the optics and the way you look when you lose, those are two very different things. And right now, the Knicks look awful. I mean, you want to talk about a beatdown, 31-point beatdown. Listen to some of these numbers, right? Some of these recent trends for the Knicks. This is beyond troubling. So 4 straight losses, we know about that. And I know that there's no Josh Hart, but geez, I mean, you'd make you think that the Knicks were trying to play without Patrick Ewing or without Clyde Frazier. I love Josh Hart. We all love Josh Hart. Could you find a way to win some games without Josh Hart? That's absolute lunacy. If that is the linchpin for the... Okay, hold on. Now we got an issue with the microphone. All right, here we go. All right, let me figure this out. Hang on, guys. I appreciate the heads up. I don't really know why it sounds like that. Is that a little bit better? Just somebody give me a thumbs up. I mean, you want to listen. I'll tell you right now. I mean, if this YouTube stream doesn't get back up, then we good? Okay. Listen. I'm being told by the second producer that we sound good. So I don't know what to tell you, but this thing needs to be figured out really soon. It's driving me absolutely nuts, and it's good. Once it's fixed, I can get back to everything that we rolled out when we started. This is a tough way to operate, man. So what I'm gonna do, this is the more mature me. Here's what I'm gonna do for you. Take a little sip of coffee. I'm going to breathe a little bit because I cannot tell you how much this bothers me, and I'm going to plow through, and I'm going to do this, okay? Because if I don't, there's really no other recourse, right? All right, so anyway, back to these Knicks, who right now just look awful. All right, they're not winning without Josh Hart. And here's the other thing, too. Like, some of the troubling trends about the Knicks here is that even some of the wins, like you go back to Christmas Day, you go back to when they barely beat the Hawks, you go back to when they barely beat the Pelicans. Like, I don't understand why some of the most basic things right now are a real problem for the New York Knicks. And even in the losses, 3 of the 4 losses, right, in a row, they've trailed by at least 19 points in the second half. What are we doing? I mean, what is the plan coming into these games? Now, I understand. All right, let me get to Karl Anthony Towns, because I understand he's the punching bag. I am not a massive believer in Cat. You know that. I just don't believe he's ever going to be that guy. What the Knicks need him to be for a couple of months of real high-level, championship-level basketball, basically when the playoffs start, you would imagine the first round will be kind of a snoozer, whatever. But then you start getting into the Eastern Conference semis, the Eastern Conference finals, and hopefully for the Knicks, and Dolan said it yesterday, better win a championship. Hey, owner, I mean, you might want to get on Leon Rose and say, you better make a big trade because there's no championship the way the Knicks look right now. And the one thing I've always said about the NBA, and it's kind of one of the main problems with the NBA, quite frankly, there's so many games, and it's really hard to gauge who you are unless you've got this, this incredible history like the Warriors or the Bulls back in the day or the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq. Like the Knicks have some nice history as a team. They don't have that kind of history, so they don't get the benefit of the doubt. Even the Celtics, if the Celtics were fully healthy with Tatum, and they hit a little bit of a skid, you can, I think you can rationalize and work through some of those issues because it's a long season. You don't want to overreact. And I don't want to overreact here. But this is not a championship team, all right? This is a team that very easily could have lost the first round a year ago. The team they played last night could not wait to play the Knicks. The Pistons pulled up in their cars to their arena last night, and they were absolutely hyped. The crowd was ready. Like, they were just ready. Everybody was ready to go except the Knicks, right? So of the 82 games in the regular season, I think there's probably about it does vary somewhat year to year, but for the most part, I would say anywhere between 8 to 12 measurement games, whether it's, the perceived best team in the other conference, if you think you're an NBA championship team, so the Thunder, or you play Denver, or you play a healthy Lakers team or one of those teams, right? You want to kind of see where you stack up. Obviously, the Spurs, and then, of course, the 2 or 3 teams in your conference that you think that at some point you will have to get past one of them in the final round to cross the bridge and get to the NBA Finals, right? So, you don't go nuts in the NBA. I almost think, and it's crazier because there's so many more games in baseball. We go crazier with the Yankees and the Mets, like the micro analysis, the just the incessant, banging of the drums with certain topics, bullpen, clutch hitting, nobody around Judge, Mendoza's a mess, all the different things we hit. And I don't know, maybe we just love baseball more. I love my basketball, but baseball's a different beast in New York, as we know. So anyway, I don't really go too nuts. I get excited. I watch every Knick game, but I don't overreact to Knick games. But this stretch to me now is undeniable. And the punching bag is Karl Anthony Towns. It is the easiest thing in the world to look at him and like the body language is not great and all the other things that are, what are we doing here? Can you please close the door, baby? Now my wife is now telling me to open the door. Okay, so the acoustics. Oh, God. If you want to talk about a scene here. So I've got the cleaning people are here right now. If I'll be honest, this would be a moment where BT and Sal would take about a 3-minute detour and I'd lose my mind, right? Because I got a lot going on now. I got the in-laws here who I love, but it's a crowded house. All right, they came in for my son's birthday, which was fantastic. They flew and they surprised him. My son's birthday was yesterday. I got the cleaning people. My son's in school, so as you know, my producer is in school, and my co-producer, or really wife/co-producer, who's trying to figure this stuff out, just walks into my office and opens the door. And she knows I'm on the air. She opens the door and she says, the acoustics. The acoustics. That's going to make a difference? Oh, God almighty. So, yeah, I'm sure I would have taken a little multi-minute detour with Sal and gone off on something. But now the door's open. Now I can hear the TV. Now I can hear the cleaning ladies banging pots and pans, whatever the hell they're doing. So, anyway. Oh, man. You got to laugh at this stuff, man. You got to laugh. So, Karl Anthony Towns, I've never loved his body language. I've never really believed in him. You guys know this. And the numbers with Karl this year are it's not pretty, all right? So, catch points per game down, field goal percentage down, 3-point percentage, field goal down, shots attempted down. Last night, I know we didn't play heavy minutes here, but for Karl Anthony Towns, I'm going to defend him a little bit, which is something I very rarely do, because, again, I think the low-hanging fruit is just bag on the big guy with, who's a little sloppy and rolling to the rim with his arms flailing and his legs flailing, offensive foul, Karl Anthony Towns. Like the Karl Anthony Towns experience is a trip. Because when it's on, and he looks like a first-team All-NBA, dropping 35 and hitting bombs and ripping down 13 rebounds and doing his thing, hitting free throws, getting to the rim. It's just a good passer, incredible range, opens things up for the Knicks. When Karl Anthony Towns does not look good, number one, the Knicks look like a team that's going nowhere. Actually, when the Karl Anthony Towns that we saw last night, that's a first-round exit if you play the wrong team. And it's a pipe dream to think that you're getting to the conference finals, let alone, easily just, flying through the first round. So there's an issue with him. 6 turnovers, incredibly sloppy. But to me, you've got to at least have the bandwidth to incorporate some other stuff here and not just keep going to the pinata, the human pinata that has become Karl Anthony Towns. 6 shots? Now, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that he got 4 shots, pardon me. 6 points, 6 turnovers, 4 shots. Well, the first answer would be Mike Brown. This Knicks team, anywhere they go this year, anywhere they go, it's going to be fueled by the offense, right? It is not going to be fueled by the defense, even though you've got 2 incredible defenders on the wing. You've got a terrific defensive force in the middle with Mitchell Robinson. I don't know how you can't piece together a better defensive plan than what the Knicks are rolling out there on a night-to-night basis. There was some crazy stat. There's been a lot of stats with these Knicks here. A lot of stats here. And this one I thought was very interesting. So 12 straight games, the Knicks have allowed 110 points or more, and they've allowed their opponents to shoot 45% or higher. Now, I understand. I don't want to go nuts because basically everybody's averaging a buck 15. Knicks are like 120, 121. And, points are up and down, more possessions, more threes. I get it. You can, like, when you measure that stat, and that's the worst stretch in the history of the Knicks there, you can overreact and maybe make it more than it is. You've got to incorporate the trends of the NBA, the modern NBA. But anyway you cut it, that's certainly not a good statistic, clearly. Well, you shouldn't be surprised by that when 40% of your starting five's defense is awful. Cat, awful. Brunson, awful. But when I look at their upside and the ability for the Knicks to do something special this year, it's always been fueled by the offense. It's been fueled by the depth. It's been fueled by a new approach with the head coach, more efficiency. And for the most part, most of the guys are putting up some pretty sick offensive numbers. But, I mean, Mike, you've got to see the way and part of the onus is on Karl-Anthony Towns. I get that. You've got to demand the ball. You've got to be more assertive. You've got to be more productive. You've got to stop with the stupid fouls that get you on the bench. These have been issues that have plagued him for a while. But to me, while Karl-Anthony Towns has to, there's no way he's getting a pass, has to assume a lion's share of the blame here. Can we start looking at the point guard a little bit as well? It is not, there's just no congruency here when your point guard takes 21 shots and your second or third All-NBA center takes four. So there's a lot of things that are beginning to worry me about this team. Now, obviously, you just get Deuce McBride back, and you've got to find a way to, and now they've played him, and he's played very well most of the games he's come back, and I love him. I love McBride. And, when there's a big-minute guy that comes back, suddenly the allocation of roles change a little bit. I understand this. Like, this is not the end of the world here for the Knicks, but I mean, it could be if this doesn't change soon enough, because the things that they're deficient in are not going to change. Brunson's always going to be a fire hydrant on defense. He's awful. Karl-Anthony Towns is always going to be just a fire hydrant with zero lateral dexterity on defense. That's not going to change. Now, again, can you work around that when Cat is a central piece of the offense? Sure. And guys, I get it. Just like there were some nights when Shaq would get 49 and Kobe would lay out a little bit. Kobe didn't like to lay out too much for anybody. It's one of the reasons why it's Kobe. But there are certain nights when one guy's flowing and the second best player or even the first best player in that power dynamic's got to understand that based on the matchup, feed him the rock, get out of the way, let him eat. And I just, I've got to throw some of this here on the great almighty Jalen Brunson. I love the guy. He's an absolute beast. He is a killer. And he is right now, along with Judge, he's the king of New York. Maybe in a couple of years, Jackson Dart has something to say about that, whatever. Rangers get their act together. Hopefully Shesterkin's okay, by the way. But Rangers going a deep run. Shesterkin wins. He could be the king of New York. I'm not saying there's no other options here. But to me, it's Judge and Brunson. And when you're the king of New York, there's a responsibility, not just of whether it's hitting home runs for Judge or putting up points if you're Brunson. You really have to understand that while you're a shoot-first lead guard, you just have to, there's got to be that internal mechanism within you where you're like, all right, the big guy's not getting any love here. Let me feed him. There's something to be said for that because it keeps him engaged, Cat. It keeps him energized. And by the way, it's also advantageous to the Knicks now because if you feed him, whether it's in or out, well, now the defense has to react to that. If Karl-Anthony Towns is taking 4 shots, you're pretty much laying off him. He's a complete non-entity. So it really does minimize the other guys. And I just don't understand why this is not being corrected. I don't like it. I don't like what I see, and I am absolutely worried. I'm not at the point yet because this would be disingenuous because I have been on the record that I want to give this team one chance to go for a championship. I really do. And today, even with all the warning signs and all the things that I am beginning to truly incorporate into my opinions that may lead me to change my previous opinion at some point, I'm not there yet. But you got to understand, we're getting to the breaking point. I just don't know how you're not ready to play basketball last night. I don't get it. Like the other thing, too, with the Knicks, there's an element of passiveness that I see a little bit too much with this team, almost almost like entitlement. Like, hey, everybody says we're the best team in the Eastern Conference, and the Celtics have banged up, and the Cavaliers have had their issues. Yeah, we beat the Pistons in the playoffs last year. Yeah, it's ours to lose. We're the team to beat. Well, all right, you might be, you might not be, you might be, but you haven't earned the right to just go through the motions. Who the hell you think you are? Go through the motions. And really, let's face it, guys, the Knicks have been going through the motions for a while. They didn't start out great. I didn't go nuts. New coach, new system. But it is now January. And listen to the post-game reaction last night from Karl Anthony Towns. That's not disconcerting. I mean, how the hell does this guy still not know his role? It was one thing during training. Remember this during training camp? And I remember Sal and I got into this. I'm like, oof. And I was defending Brown, and I was defending the Knicks, and I was in on the Knicks. And I'm not out, but I'm starting to change a little bit here. Talking about the start of the year. I was in, right? And even I said, like, that's an odd assessment of your role with the team. Because he was basically asked, what's your role? And it wasn't a conventional answer like, well, it's still a work in progress, and we've got a new coach, and we've got a lot of guys who can score. I'm still feeling my way around, and I have no doubt by whatever point of the season, just whatever you rotely say, we'll get it going. I'll be fine. We're going to be a great offense. I can't wait to see what we can become. It was nothing like that. It was really the complete antithesis. It was, I don't know. I don't really know what my role is. So that was a little worrisome. And again, I didn't overreact then, but here we are. Last night, January 5th, the Knicks play a measurement game, one of the few you play all year, just based on the massive amount of games that mean nothing in the grand scheme. You're not going to learn anything about about yourself against a ravaged Pacers team or the Nets or, even a Bucks team that's going nowhere, or the Pelicans or some of these teams. What are you going to learn? You're not going to learn anything. You're going to beat up on them. You're going to pad the stats, collect a win and keep it moving. Last night was a measurement game from a tenacity perspective, and the Knicks had zero. And you looked at the Pistons, and you saw a bunch of pit bulls, a bunch of junkyard dogs. And last night, the Knicks, they looked like a bunch of, lap dogs, chihuahuas, where, if mommy or daddy's not feeding them the milk and the little fancy collar around their neck, they're not going to make it. Like, God forbid they wander into the street. They're not going to make it out of the neighborhood. They're done. That's it. Like, you got to be a dog to win. And I thought they had more of that. And I don't even mean outwardly. I do wish that they had. That's why I love DiVincenzo. You know that. Plus, he can shoot. But you need that loose wire, that personality that's a little combustible, who's yapping, who's getting teed up, who's sticking threes and flexing and talking smack. Where is that guy? Brunson does his thing, and Brunson's awesome. I'm not trying to come down on Jalen too hard here, but, he's not that. Like that, he doesn't have that volatility to his game in terms of that emotional outburst. And by the way, it's an asset for him. He's an incredibly steady, incredibly consistent leader and great player. But when your best player is that way, you need somebody else to assume the rank, like take the baton of that pit bull. Mikal Bridges doesn't say a word. OG Anunoby, I love him. I'm playing well all of a sudden, but OG doesn't say a word. Karl Anthony Towns is lost right now. Deuce is a hell of a player and a hell of a defender and a hell of a competitor, but he's not that guy that's going to chop it up with the other team and let the other team make the other team uncomfortable. All right, Clarkson's going to do a little woofing, and I like that, coming off the bench, just pumping shots, being a gunner. You need that. But I don't love the Knicks' identity right now. I don't even. Let me take that back. It's not that I don't love it. I don't know what it is. So I can't love or I can't critique something that I can't identify. I know what their skill is. They're supposed to be one of the best offensive teams in the NBA. And a lot of the stats this year say that they are. But boy, oh boy, the defense has gotten so bad, so problematic, that with Karl Anthony Towns being a bystander more often than not, they're not going to have the offensive firepower to be able to plow through and get to the level that, let's face it, they got to get to this year. Like, if the Knicks don't get to the finals, it's over with this group. It's done. For me, there's nothing else to evaluate at that point. Now, I'm willing to give them this season. Got a little while before the trade deadline. If it doesn't improve, and it just keeps getting worse, well, then I'm going to go back on what I said right around Christmas, where I'm not making a trade. I'm not touching Giannis. I'm not breaking up this core. They've earned the right to go for it. I still believe it, not as much as I did. I'm not there yet, but I actually right now, truth serum injection, I actually think I'm probably more inclined to change my opinion about these Knicks having to do something radical midseason than me feeling much better about this current situation and going back to the way that I once did feel. So is where we are with the Knicks here. It's funny, like the Yankees take all the heat. What are the Yankees? I'll give you a little hot stove note before we get out of here, by the way. What are the Yankees doing? How gets ripped to shreds? Meanwhile, all the Yankees do is win 90-something games and give you a chance to win a World Series. And the Yankees, in the court of public opinion, get crushed by the sports fan in New York. Now, part of that is because they've earned it. I get that. I understand that. When we expect a lot out of somebody or something and the results aren't matched, well, there's going to be a bit of a vitriolic pertaining to sports reaction. That's the way it's always going to be. That's the way it should be. When the standard is set and the bar is high, and there's just there's a lack of accomplishment. That's the way the game goes here. We all know it. We've all been around the New York sports scene. It's different everywhere. Well, it's different in most other places, but like the Yankees are held to the standard, and I love that they are. I mean, I actually wish they held themselves to the standard that most of us now hold them to, because they're the ones who created the standard. Lose to the Diamondbacks in the World Series. Nope, it's a failure. Didn't win the World Series. Lose to the Marlins in 03. Nope, failure. Didn't win the World Series. Get knocked out by the Tigers. A-Rod dropped to the bottom of the order. Nope, failure. Didn't win the World Series. Get knocked out to Dallas Keuchel and the Astros. Cole gets lit up to the Red Sox wild card game. Nope, failure. Didn't win the World Series. Well, guys, I mean, there is a really good chance that this winds up being a colossal failure for the New York Knicks. And they're at that point now where, all right, what happens with Cat's contract, and Bridges is making big money and OG's making big money, and Brunson on a very team-friendly deal it's an amazing contract based on his production, but eventually that's going to have to change as well. Do you resign Mitch, who's making okay? I think Mitch is about $10 million a year, whatever it might be. McBride's contract is great. Most of the other contracts are very manageable, but you don't get, a 3 or a 4-year window in the modern NBA if your crew is not showing the ability to cut through and win. And if they get knocked out, if they get knocked out in the first round, then Brown's got to get whacked and you got to just take a wrecking ball, kind of like the Mets are doing to their team, because then you'll have a sense that the core is not good enough, all right? Even though I believe strongly that the Knicks core is much better than the Mets core that was just broken up. And again, I think smartly by David Stearns and the Mets. I'm not going to keep pushing this down the road saying, next year, one more year. Cat's not getting better. Brunson's not getting better. OG's not getting better. Bridges is not getting better. Clarkson is what he is. Gunner off the bench. Value, but not getting better. Cola could get a little bit better. Deuce could get a little bit better. Mitch is not going to get better. He's going to be what he is, which is a real asset, but they kind of are who they are. That's the point. And that is a very worrisome situation for the Knicks. This one's from, I'm going to read a couple here. Serpico, I think the Knicks fans have become a little overconfident in their roster. Giannis is the answer. He might be. There's no doubt. But number one, he's going to have to really force his way out of there. There's going to be a lot of other teams that are going to be crushing that door down to get Giannis. And because of what they did with Mikal Bridges, do the Knicks really have enough to satisfy the Bucks' demand for one of the best players in the NBA? And if they do, now this I'll do on a different show because I don't want to get too distracted now with this. I want to focus on where we are now, but it's part of the conversation. And even if the Knicks were to come up with a package that was satisfactory enough to the Bucks, what they would have to give up, and then you bring Giannis in, is there enough left around Brunson and Giannis, because you're not trading Brunson, to win a championship? And, I could make the very strong case that the answer would probably be no, which on some level could dissuade you from making that move. So there's a lot at play here. I don't see a whole lot of professional pride. That really bothers me. And that's one thing that you had with Tom Thibodeau's Knicks. And I'm not pining for Tom Thibodeau. It was the right move then. It's the right move now. I stand by it. It is what it is. And by the way, even if the Knicks were to get bumped in the first round, I would still say it was the right move because you had to try something different. You want to tell me they hired the wrong guy? All right, I can get into that at some point. But moving on, like the concept of moving on from Tom Thibodeau was not the wrong concept. How it's being applied now, I'm not prepared to say it's the wrong one, but it just doesn't look as right as it once did. I mean, 31, you get your face kicked in. What an ass kicking. 31 points to the Detroit Pistons? I mean, you got to be kidding me. It's their longest losing streak since 2022. I mean, these measurement games they're not doing very well. In these losses, 3 of the 4 times they've been trailing by at least 19 points. And don't give me just because Josh Hart's not here. I don't want to hear it. If the Knicks are that fragile without Josh Hart, if they're that vulnerable without Josh Hart, well, then they're not a championship team anyway. And I love the guy. That's the pit bull. Like, that's the junkyard dog. And so they got one of them. They got one of those real dogs there. All right, he's not playing. Go out there and outskill somebody. That's what you're supposed to have, right? So, I think if you look at guys like the inherent and the fundamental flaws of these Knicks, those are not going to change without a trade. Because no matter what Jalen Brunson does, from a recognition point of view, he's just the physical limitations for him as a defender are incredibly problematic. And I don't just mean keeping guys in front of him. Like, he's an amazing, his footwork is sublime. That's why he gets the shots off that he does. But like that burst, he's never going to be laterally some explosive defender. And that's never going to, it's only going to get worse as he gets older. So that's a built-in deficiency. And we know that. And that's okay. You can work around it. But the top of the Knicks defense, starting when the ball comes over midcourt, is a problem because every team switches and runs their offense to exploit Brunson at the top. Like, that's the starting point. Let's put him in the cycle and let's put him in spin mode and let's abuse him. And not only can you get by him or outmuscle him, I mean, one pick and he shot, if he doesn't identify going over or going under it, but any rub where, somebody who's bigger, he's just not going to get through cleanly. And at this level, you just need this much space. You could pass over him, small. And then, even if the Knicks do a good job of that central point of what the opponents are trying to exploit, well, now you go to plan B. Now the door's closing. Why is the door closing here? I don't know what that means. Yeah. All right. Even if they're able to do that, right? Well, then you just go right to Karl Anthony Towns and you abuse him defensively. So I am very, very alarmed by what I'm seeing here. I'm somewhat distressed by what I'm seeing here. And if it doesn't change, this season is going to be a colossal failure. It just is. I mean, that's all there is to it. And I think it's worth, reiterating very quickly that, this is not a somewhat recent trend where you can chalk it up as, post-cup, Knicks really wanted to win the cup. They tapped out. They emptied the chamber. They emptied the tank. Now they're a little tired. I don't know. I don't know that that's it, because even some of the wins, think about this, on the one on Christmas Day, I mean, Donovan Mitchell's three-point heat, that goes in, we got problems. I mean, it's a riveting win, but the problems and the reasons why they were down so big, I mean, that's a real thing. And then even, barely beating the Hawks. Hawks are going nowhere. And even the Pelicans game, get a scratch, you got a claw. And it's very tricky to look at the wins and say, hey, look at the way they're winning. It's impressive, right? And before this recent stretch here. But I got to tell you, I don't think that that's necessarily the case, because there's been alarming signs in the wins that are a bit of an issue here. All right, yeah. Listen, guys. I'm seeing a lot of them. What's wrong? No, I didn't have a dental procedure. What's wrong with his voice? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a producer. You know what I mean? I will figure that out. All right. So let me. I mean, if it's that bad, I guess I'm not going to roll too long here. But let me at least give you this here. All right. Let me transfer this in to the Giants. So now you're hearing a lot of Stefanski. I like Stefanski. I think he's pretty good. I do. I don't think he's nearly as good as some people are positioning him to be. So you got Arizona, the Raiders, you got the Browns, the Falcons, the Titans, the Giants. Let me put the Giants aside here, all right? So to me, well, actually, I'll put them aside in a moment. If I was to just a big, broad scope, look at the Giants and say, all right, where do the Giants stack up with the other 5 openings, 6 in totality, maybe one more today, whatever? Well, I've always said I think the Giants' job is incredibly appealing, even though they've been a mess of a franchise. Steady ownership, all right? They're a respected franchise, not as much as they once were, but they're still the Giants, okay? And you've got a quarterback who most of us absolutely believe is the real deal. So that's all good stuff right there. And they've got a couple of real purposeful, explosive defensive players. Neighbors comes back. Hopefully Scatterboo's the same. O-line's better. So for some football reasons and then non-football reasons, I do think the Giants' job is an incredibly appealing job. So when I hear everybody like running, like tripping over themselves to hire Stefanski, I mean, not that I wouldn't label it a bad hire at all. I'd say it's a solid hire. But just to go to like him and not investigate like what's gonna happen with the Ravens, or have a conversation, a real one with McCarthy, or LaFleur if that ends, like maybe trade for somebody, all things we've discussed. There's no way Stefanski's the home run layup hire without focusing any other attention for anybody else. I don't believe that. Now, when I look at these other jobs, so Arizona, I mean, who the hell wants to coach that team? I know it's one of, X amount of jobs in the NFL, obviously 32. I get that, but it doesn't mean that it's a good job. It's not. To me, it's very undesirable. The quarterback situation's a mess, and they've got only $21 million in cap space. Yeah, it's not a really vibrant fan base. It's a great place to live if you want to go to Arizona, but nice weather and all that stuff. To me, Arizona is pretty much, I think the Arizona job is the worst in football right now of the openings. The Browns, to me, is number 5. Now, first of all, they don't have a good quarterback situation. If you love Shador, great. I don't. I'm not giving up on him, but, I didn't see enough to say, oh, he's the guy, so I'm not going to certainly go there. The ownership situation is maddening. It's an absolute disaster. They changed their minds. There's like the volatility within the Browns. It's a joke. So I don't trust them there. And they, as I said, they're $12 million over the cap. So to get better fast, it's not coming, excuse me, it's not coming via free agency. They don't have the first pick, so they're not getting Mendoza or Moore. They don't have the second pick unless they would have traded with the Jets. And if Moore doesn't come out, there's no trade to be made because nobody else is worthy of going number 2 or 3 or 4 as a quarterback once you get past Mendoza and Dante Moore. If he doesn't come out, and if the Jets are picking number 2 and the Jets want Dante Moore, then if I'm Dante Moore, I'm going to say, no, I'll go back to the Ducks, give me $10.5, $11 million NIL, and that's it. And I'll just kind of test the waters next year, get some experience, put on some more weight because he is young and he only weighs about 205 pounds. Not a lot of game experience. So you can make the very easy case that only one quarterback's going to get drafted. We'll find out as we move closer to it, like drafted early. So I don't think the Browns situation is very good. Now, the other one, the Titans situation, all right, I mean, Cam Ward's numbers are not good. Like, I've talked to some people who study film. Listen, I watch film, but like I always say, I'm not a scout. I'm not a coach. I know what I'm looking for, but that's not my main thing. But I did see some things on film from Cam Ward, numbers aside, that I do like. I think he's got some real talent. And talent with the right situation, it can be coerced out of him and made much more mature very soon, okay? So I like Cam Ward and his upside and his viability maybe more than some of you. So if you're with me, you think it's better than the Browns job. You think it's better than the Cardinals job. Now, if you don't, well, then that would obviously change how you view that job. But also, they've got $100 million in free agent money. So it's appealing there. And that's a lot of scratch to build it out. I would imagine ownership would cut the checks. It's a great city. A lot of people want to live in Tennessee. So, I think that's a decent job. To me, the top 3 jobs would be the Giants, would be the Raiders, would be the Falcons. Now, interestingly, I'm going to start with the Falcons here very quick. Obviously, Raheem Morris is out. There's got to be real concerns around Penix, obviously, another knee injury. Kirk Cousins He ain't it. Watch, he'll be on the Jets next year as a Band-Aid. You're going to go nowhere with him, as we know. It's a weak division, so that's kind of appealing there. No first-round pick. That's a bit of an issue. But they got some talent, whether it's Robinson, whether it's London, whether it's Kyle Pitts. They've got a good offensive line, pretty good O-line. So to me, that's a situation, once they rectify the quarterback spot, and it's going to be problematic this year because, again, you don't have the first-round pick, and Penix has been, even going back to earlier years in college, he's had a lot of injuries. I do think the Falcons' job is a lot more appealing than maybe some of you do, but I don't think it's more appealing than the Raiders' job, and I don't think it's more appealing than the Giants' job. Now, the Raiders' job, all right, you get the number one pick, so if you love Mendoza, which they probably will, there's no way Brady's not going to. I mean, do you really think Tom Brady's going to pick the wrong quarterback? Do you really think that? Do you really think Tom Brady is going to assemble the wrong coaching staff? No, he's not. You're already hearing about he's going to bring in Brian Flores, which would be amazing. Bring in Dable as the OC, which would be amazing. And then obviously take the first overall pick, go with Mendoza, and they've got $100 million in cap space there. So, and the problem with the Raiders is unlike the Giants and unlike even the Falcons and some other teams, they have almost no high-level players. Crosby's situation probably gets dealt. Obviously, their tight end Bowers is incredible. I mean, but they just have like a dearth of players. Like you look at them, you're like, all pro or Pro Bowl, not many. So that's really starting from scratch. Now, the one thing you get if you're somebody like a Flores, like you would think that the Raiders' ascent would be or could be pretty quick, you would think, because they're going to spend money. You're going to get probably Mendoza. And listen, if it happens to be more, and then, of course, the Jets would have to get incredibly lucky for this to happen. But if it is more, well, then I would trust that because that's Tom Brady who is leading the way for the decision. So top quarterback, top coach, top OC, $100 million to play with, 6 stadium, great place to live. I mean, that is a very, very appealing job. But I still think that the Giants' job is most appealing because we can sit here and talk about, like, theoretically what the Raiders do have and what they could do. I could just tell you the very easiest selling point for the Giants is they've already got their quarterback. So now we can sit here, and we will, and we have on other shows and future pods, obviously, here on Unleashed here. We could talk about, like, where exactly is the ceiling for Jackson Dart, and it's impossible to know yet because you got to get more around them, and the coaching's been wretched. But at least we know on almost the lowest level, like the most cursory check of is he the guy or could he be the guy? Every check is yes. Is he a leader? Yes. Is he a really good athlete? Yes. Does he have stones? Yes. Does he have a penchant for making off-platform plays, which is paramount in the modern NFL? The answer is yes. Does he have some really, really good I've seen some high-level throws, even where guys have dropped the ball, where he's putting it in, converging safety, converging a linebacker, nickel corner, like I'm talking here, in the end zone, middle of the field, in the flats. Like, I just think Jackson Dart's that good. And the hope is that he stays healthy. But, that's really the hope with anybody. So I think that alone, not to mention a pass rush, which with some additions on the third level, now the pass rush is going to be even better. So I do think that the Giants' job is the number one job. I do. You can make a case for one or two others, as I did, but I think the way I look at this, I would go Giants 1, I'd go Raiders 2, I'd go Falcons 3, Titans, Browns, Cards, in that order. That's what I would do. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I do think that the energy around Stefanski, I wouldn't use the word worrisome. And I get it, but it just seems like there's been this massive, like a magnet, this gravitational pull. Stefanski, Giants coach, have to do it. But you don't have to do it. What you have to do is talk to every coach who has won a Super Bowl, who is available, and every coach who has won a Super Bowl who is not yet available, but can be made available with the proper trade enticement, and we know who those guys are. And that's what you got to do. And I believe that the Giants will. Now, as I said yesterday, if it was up to me, I wouldn't, and I think most of you would agree, I would not have Joe Shane making this decision, but the Giants are elected to bring him back. And while I vehemently disagree with it, I like I'm not. What are we gonna do? Just yell and scream for an hour here when it's not gonna change anything? He's brought back. He's back. He had his press conference yesterday. And by the way, I thought he was fairly humble. I mean, you better be humble. I mean, geez, if you get up there, you're buffing your chest out when you went through this circus of the season again, you really are not reading the room properly. But no, I thought he was fairly humbled, and I thought he took ownership of many of the failures here. The problem is, I just would have gone with a clean break. Like, is somebody like Stefanski, who's definitely going to be in demand? That's a given, and that he should be. Coach of the year. You have a couple of good seasons twice, actually. You have a couple of good seasons with the Browns. You're doing something right. Like, you're obviously a valued commodity in the NFL. So teams will be knocking his door down. I just want the Giants to make sure they talk to McCarthy and do all the other things I've said. And if they do, and if they settle on Stefanski, who I really like. I don't know if I love him, but I really like him. Well, then I'm fine with that, right? But there's going to be a lot of suitors out there. But if you're Stefanski, why would you sign up for a job with the Giants when the general manager is, let's face it, if they go 4-13 next year, you're going to roll Shane back again? I don't know how you're going to possibly do that. So I wouldn't do that. If I'm now, the only way somebody like Stefanski or an established coach would do that is if he is given ultimate power. And there's nothing that can be done by Shane to usurp that power. Hey, you have a voice in the war room on draft night. You've got, personnel power. And it can be positioned as collaborative, so it doesn't look like in the court of public opinion, Joe Shane's a puppet. But why would an accomplished coach, this is the problem, and this is why I would have really gotten rid of Joe, and I would have started over and fresh. And they're not doing that. And I think it's the wrong way to do it. I don't like it. And it just doesn't seem like it's the sensible route to take. Like, it's sloppy. It's the mistakes the Jets have made too many times in the past. Other bad franchises have made in the past. So I don't think it's great. But at least the Giants are going to have their selection of some really good coaches and guys that I think will elevate the ceiling the moment they walk in and the moment they have the press conference, which there's a couple that will win it, including Stefanski. And then more importantly, once you get past that, because that wins you nothing, now once you get in front of the room for the first time as the head coach, now you win that as well. And now here we go. The entire building is galvanized a bit. There's some energy, and you start pushing this thing forward, and you start competing and winning some games. And I think that's a very plausible path here for the Giants if it's somebody like Stefanski. Now, just imagine if they didn't have Jackson Dart. Imagine if they didn't have Jackson Dart and they still had the 5th overall pick here. Wow. Now, instead of, let's face it, guys, instead of the Cards being in my opinion, the Cards or the Browns or even the Titans being one of the least desirable jobs, well, now the Giants are right on the bottom there. That's amazing. So the presence of a potential, and I believe it's a lot more yes than no, franchise quarterback is obviously something that is going to be very appealing. So anyway, I like that. The Knicks are terrifying me. They've got to start digging in, and they've got to change that narrative very, very soon. You know where I stand on the openings. I wanted to give you a little rank in there. By the way, YouTube channel is still down. We're working through it. I appreciate your patience. So it's not optimal. It's not what I necessarily had envisioned when we launched, but it's all good. It's new. There's going to be some bumps. We plow through it. But go to the YouTube page at BT Unleashed. By the way, it's also up on Spotify shortly after the show ends. We'll get that up for you. Every episode so far has been uploaded to Spotify. Many of you have asked about Apple. We're coming. That's coming next. I've told you about the studio design, so I'm not going to get into that now. I can't wait for that. That's probably about, I would say, 2 weeks away-ish. Not that far off. And then the ability to integrate callers and obviously guests, which is more on my end. I've got to find a producer, and I've got to be able to do that. Things that don't necessarily, you don't need to know about behind the scenes, except what I've got planned for the show. Now, when you go to the YouTube page, there's a lot of other content, addressing going back to when the Mets really, the wrecking ball that they took to their offseason. So, since I haven't been on the Fan, obviously, and I won't be, except maybe doing some part-time shows, there's a lot of things that maybe you wanted to hear that are there. Some Knicks stuff, and admittedly, my opinion has changed a little bit. Obviously, a lot of Jet stuff, some Giant stuff, some Knicks stuff, a little Johnny stuff as well. One little thought here, and then I'm going to bounce, and I'm going to leave it at this here. So the Yankees, and this will be a much more thorough, much deeper dive. Watched the Yankees Hot Stove Report last night, this show with Jack Curry, who I think is great, and Michael Kay, who you know I'm very good friends with. Love Michael. They did a great job. I kind of like and the other guys on the show. I'm not taking a shot, but I like the Hot Stove Show, which is two people, as just more of a flow, right? And again, no knock on the other guys there, but Kay and Curry have a great rapport. I thought it was really good last night. And it was really the first Hot Stove Yankee show where there's like a speck of hope, where you're like, all right, maybe the Yankees are going to do something. Because let's face it, I mean, Jack Curry, anything that when he says, now he's incredibly well sourced, and I think he's awesome, a very talented guy. When Jack Curry tells you something, believe it. Because I don't know if it's coming from Cash or Hal. Like, he's not just throwing darts at Yankee news. He is as piped into the Yankees mindset as you can possibly be. So last night, to me, was the most optimistic presentation of what the Yankees are going to do in the offseason. Now, there is still an ability for the Yankees to go all in. There's a route, all right? There is a way to do it. And it's exciting. Problem is, they're not going to do it. Because what they could do and what they should do is obvious. And I get it, haggling back and forth with Bellinger. Last night we learned that there was a second offer on the table. So, Boris is trying to get the extra years, and Pete got 5, and obviously some other players Schwarber got 5. And you understand, and I get this. Like, if I'm Boris, I'm sitting here saying, listen, dude, well, Hal, Cash, and everybody else that is maybe talking to Bellinger. Bellinger is an elite defender who doesn't strike out that much, who can run and can play 3 or 4 different spots, and is good with 2 strikes, and he's a really good player, already fits New York profile. He's already done it. Like, there's that stuff. So I understand why it's going to be a bit of an arduous negotiation here from the Yankees' point of view. And if I'm Boris, I'm also saying, now Schwarber's a superior power. I love Schwarber. I loved him for the Yanks or the Mets, by the way. But to give him 5 years, can't run, doesn't play defense. To give Pete 5 years, doesn't run, average first baseman, a lot of strikeouts. Like, I get why Boris is pushing. He's probably pushing for 6 or 7, which is crazy. I would have to deduce that the Yankees gave a good 4-year deal on the table. Maybe the second offer was a 5th year, and they knew that they would happily make that concession. They were trying to go low. If I have to guess, as long as somebody doesn't come with a 6-year deal, I would think that the Yankees would get Bellinger at 5 years, and I'd be very happy with that. 6 years, 7 years, stupidity, not happening, at least not for the Yankees. So I do think, I don't feel great about it. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say I feel about an 8, maybe an 8.5, that Bellinger is going to come back to the Yankees. It would probably be lower, but now I think there's a good chance that Cohen and the Mets jump in on Tucker on a shorter-term deal with a higher AAV, which, just based on the recent expenditures, I would imagine that Cohen would have more of an appetite for that than Hal. Now, if Tucker signs with Toronto or Dodger, whatever, now I do think it gets more complicated from a Yankees point of view of retaining Bellinger, because then I think the Mets will be more aggressive. But I still think he winds up with the Yankees, Bellinger, so that I believe will happen. Obviously, whether it's a Cabrera or a Peralta, it's obvious the Yanks are going for that extra starting arm, and they should, because Rodon's going to be out the first month of the season more. Same with Garrett Cole. I would think Schlittler will be an absolute stud, but it's sophomore year, year 2. Guys figure it out a little bit. He's got to make some adjustments, and until I see him make them, I'm going to hold. I'm going to be a little prudent here and not say he's going to win 23 games with a 1.90 ERA. I mean, this is big boy territory. The opponents will go to school and make some adjustments. Now, so will he, but he's still a kid, and there's still some unknowns. Schmidt gone for a while, as we know, and then the Yarboroughs, the Will Warrens, whatever. The East is too good, right? And, of course, Fried, who's a beast. The East is too good to mess around and go and start the season 11-14. And if there's no Bellinger and there's no Cole and Rodon to start the year, like, that's not completely off the table. Like, Toronto's better, Boston's better, Tampa's better, Orioles are better. Like, everybody's getting better but the Yankees. And just getting Bellinger back, they won't be getting better. They'll remain who they are. So the easiest thing in the world is to say, if I own the Yankees, Bellinger done, Peralta, Cabrera, Alcantara, some other starting pitcher, done, trade, Dominguez, Jones, whatever you want to take somebody except Lombard, and Schlittler. And then what I do is I get Bichette in here. Like if the Yankees opening day lineup has Bichette and Bellinger and Judge, and you add a real, not a fifth, innings eater in the rotation, but a real stud, one of the arms I just mentioned, and Bellinger's back. Well, now you can't tell me the Yankees didn't go all in there. You would have to say that they did. But they won't. So I think that the Yankees will bring back Bellinger, get a pitcher, and probably pass on Bichette. Sadly, what I think is happening is that I think the Yankees, who are the kings of due diligence, they check in with everybody, right? I think the Yankees are looking at Bichette more as an option in case in case Bellinger bounces. And if he leaves, it's going to have to be a quick pivot. And to not have engaged somebody previously, you've got to at least make them think early that you want them. And, not that money doesn't talk, not that they couldn't be a little irresponsible and entice them with an extra year or a higher AAV than anybody else. But does anybody think the Yanks are going to necessarily do that? No. So it's smart to engage Bichette now. This way, if Bellinger goes somewhere else, it's an easier transition back into the go. All right, now we're going to get a little more serious, and then you wind up with Bichette, which to me is the move. Like if it came down, and I've said this, a Bellinger or a Bichette, I would take Bichette because you have to get more righty laden. They've got to get a backup catcher who hits righty, and there's other things they've got to do more on the ancillary within the margin. So these are all things we've hit. The sports scene right now is incredibly vibrant. It's going to be a blast watching Mendoza and more from a Jets perspective coming up with the college football playoffs. The Knicks have real issues. The Giants are in the news. Johnnies are playing tonight. St. John's better win tonight. That is a game they absolutely must win. Must win. Must. They got to start getting their identity. Talk about the Knicks. I mean, I don't really know what the Knicks' identity is right now. I'm even less certain what St. John's identity is. So, again, hopefully, Jesus, the Rangers goalie. Hopefully he's okay. Shesterkin. I think there's a lot of good things to talk about now. It is driving me nuts that the YouTube thing is not there, but I can only control what I can control. We're working on it, I promise. And each week hopefully each day, we'll start laying some more stuff out. I appreciate you guys following. I do. I absolutely do. And listen, when you go to the YouTube page, follow it, check it out, subscribe, bounce around, comment, hit some of the other content that I've already dropped there. And let's see. I just feel like in the next couple of days, maybe by the weekend, don't you just feel like the Yankees are going to have some resolution? I do. Knicks are more of a let's watch and evaluate story. And, of course, we've got to go through the process here with the G-men and their coaching. So have an awesome Tuesday. Back tomorrow at 10. I enjoyed it, and I will catch you then. Bye-bye. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.